Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. This is part 2 on if anyone can beat Saul Canelo Alvarez. And so let's just dig right into it. The first question comes from Hard Recoil. Triple G already beat him, and he is the only one he can do it again with the right approach. Now, Triple G is a very tough opponent. Him and Canelo Alvarez had 2 very close fights. And, no matter who you had winning, you realize it was a very challenging and difficult fight. Now, I feel like in a trilogy, I think Canelo would have the clear advantage because Canelo Alvarez has outboxed Triple G to a certain degree in both fights. Canelo Alvarez is younger, he's in his prime, and he's progressing. Triple G is getting older, and he's on the decline. So I cannot expect Triple G to hold an advantage over Canelo Alvarez in a trilogy. Triple G's only chance of winning a trilogy will not be on the scorecards, but will have to be to knock Canelo Alvarez out. And the fact that Canelo Alvarez has already taken a lot of Triple G's biggest shots, and the fact that Canelo Alvarez is clearly the better boxer than Triple G, should he go for the knockout against Canelo Alvarez, he will risk getting knocked out himself. But that's a great statement. Let's go on to the next one. Warlord states, only a ninja kills a ninja. Well, I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to assume only a boxer beats a boxer. And so we're just going to go with that. The next one comes from Dell. Charlie Z, I have no doubt about it. The next one comes from Jim Reaper. He said, me because I'm bad. A good one, Jim. Cassie Epico says Charlo in his sleep. I don't think Jamal Charlo has the skill set, the experience, or the level of boxing to beat Canelo Alvarez. The One True Phobia says if Canelo were to drain himself going down a 150 catch weight like he did against Mayweather, I'm pretty sure Terence Crawford would give him a bad night. And I don't think Canelo Alvarez would ever do that. I don't think Canelo Alvarez would go past 160. He's already stated he's the A-side in any fight he fights today. Even if Mayweather came back, he'd still be the A-side. Canelo Alvarez is the biggest name in North American boxing, period. He's going to draw more fans into an arena or to the seats. He gains more attention than anyone else, period, at this point. If Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford met, it'll have to be at 160, where Canelo Alvarez would have a decided advantage, and I think that would just be a terrible matchup for Terence Crawford, especially at 160. Not that Terence Crawford doesn't have the skills, but moving up to Canelo Alvarez's weight is just not a good thing. The next one comes from Ray T. He said, well, you have to bring the FBI, CIA, and Homeland Security to get right next to Golden Boy promotion judges at fight night. That way they don't cheat the scorecard. Well, a lot of people will talk about cheating the scorecard against the Triple G fight, things like this. But even when you look at the Triple G and a lot of fights, and these are the same fights I get complaints on about Canelo Alvarez, if you look at them honestly and unbiasedly, all of those were close fights. And so since all of those were close fights, no matter who you had winning, you have to admit that if you're going to beat a guy like Canelo Alvarez, who's going to be the A-side in most of these fights, you have to beat him cleanly and effectively, and that's going to be a problem for most fighters. So that means you have to be a level above. You have to do more. In the Lotta fight, Lotta wasn't active enough. In the Triple G fight, he got countered way too much. These are problems. Typically, you don't win a fight with just the jab. You need a little bit more. So those are issues. The next one comes from Emmanuel Moreno. He states, if I had to choose a fighter or fighters, it would be as follows. Demetrius Andrade, because he has reach, height, good boxing IQ, decent power, excellent movement. Canelo still hasn't shown that he can cut the ring off at a high level, has problems avoiding a quick jab. I agree, Demetrius Andrade would be a major problem for Canelo Alvarez, but I would still favor Canelo. He said Triple G, excellent pressure fighter that hits hard with both hands, has an extremely effective jab, and is very durable. Canelo can beat him again if they were to fight again due to Canelo's power, chin, and boxing ability, but Triple G has a fair shot to win if he uses his jab more and to set his right hand better. He also needs to go to the body more. You have to take risk if you want to win. And I agree with that as well. I think Triple G would have to take a lot of risk, but those risks could be the same things that backfire on him. And the next one that he has is moving to super middleweight, fighting a Callum Smith. He owes size, reach, and weight advantage. He possesses good boxing ability, hits hard, and is technically sound. Does display good chin, but has shown he can get hurt. So I think that would be an interesting fight. for Canelo. And he also states Dimitri Bivol, if he goes down to super middleweight, hits hard, great movement, good boxing technique, and can take a shot from one of the biggest punchers at light heavy. So those will all be fantastic fights, and they will all be challenging fights. And for those fights, I would favor Canelo in each and every one, especially, but moving up to 168 to fight Bivol or Smith, I would favor Canelo in a 50-50 fight, which would be a very, very close by a thin margin, because those guys would be a different set of challenges. Big O says, at 60, Boo Boo. At 68, Saunders. Both have boxing skills and knowledge. I agree both guys would be interesting fighters, but I think Saunders might get stopped against Canelo, because we've never seen Saunders in there with the level opponent of a Canelo Alvarez, and we've seen Saunders openly duck Demetrius Andre. So I have a problem with that. When you have an opportunity to regain your belt and you move up because you want to avoid it, it makes no sense to me. The next one comes from Gentle Uprising. I don't see anyone beating Canelo at the moment, but if anyone has a chance to beat Canelo, it will be Danny Jacobs. He has more technical abilities than Golovkin. He didn't just rely on power. He's fast, he's agile, he's a combination puncher, and he's not waiting for one lucky punch. I think it's going to be a 50-50 match. I agree with you, Gentle Uprising. I think it's going to be a 50-50 fight. I think it's going to be Canelo Alvarez's hardest fight, and it's going to tell us a lot about how good Canelo Alvarez really, really is. Okay, the next one comes from Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy states, well, I mean, Triple G already beat Canelo in that first and got robbed second. It was close, but aside, I'd say Jacobs, man. I enjoy your channel, dude. Thank you, Johnny Boy. I appreciate it. Yeah, those were two very good fights between Triple G and Canelo, and Danny Jacobs is going to be a problem, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on how great this matchup is. If Canelo gets past Danny Jacobs and does it impressively, people have to rate him over anyone in boxing, period, because Danny Jacobs is no pushover. He's an elite level fighter, and he's a true problem. E2 Live says no one. I can respect that. The Bearded Texan says Triple G has been and the only one to beat him. Very popular opinion here. Ricky Santiago says Charlo. That must be a joke. Angel Figueroa says at 160, no one, because he's the king. I can respect that. If he moves to 168, maybe Callum Smith, Zuro Ramirez. That's very possible. At 175, he's dead meat. Kovalev, Bivol, Smith, because these guys are way too big. I don't think Canelo Alvarez is moving to 175. I think he'd make those guys drain to 168, so he'd have a very good and open chance of beating those guys because they'd be a little bit more drained. I think Callum Smith and Zuro Ramirez would put up great fights, but I think a body attack on either one of those guys, Canelo Alvarez, could still possibly come out on top. Chris Jaime says possibly Andre Ward at 175, but I pick Canelo versus Ward at a catchweight at 171. And see, I feel the same way, Chris. I think that Canelo Alvarez's best bet is to bring the guy down from 175, and I would even do a catchweight. I'd make him come down to 168, drain him a little bit, so it's more of a fair and even fight, because these guys have natural size on Canelo Alvarez. The next one comes from Luis Vargas. He states Canelo beats Canelo. Ain't nobody at that level right now, and I can respect that because Canelo is very, very special. Jorge Bonilla says number one at 160. That's for sure. He is number one at 160. He's the king at 160 pounds. Jessica Cardenas says too much momentum right now unless he loses desire and just comes to pick up a check. It has to happen. It has happened before, but right now he looks sharp, disciplined, still hungry. He has brought a few toys, but he's not comfortable yet, like Adrian Broner, Danny Garcia, Maidana, that lost interest in hunger. The only one that wants fame and easy money. Canelo at the moment really wants to prove himself to the world that he's one of the greatest, and after getting a defeat to one of the best defensive fighters of all time, still keeps improving. We haven't seen if he's reached his pinnacle or if he can have a higher ceiling. We will have to wait and see. And I agree, Jessica. I think that Canelo Alvarez has shown so much, but Canelo Alvarez is completely different than any of those fighters, and it's for one reason. Canelo Alvarez has always taken the sport serious. People could always question how serious Adrian Broner has taken it. Danny Garcia just wanted to be rich. But when you look at Canelo Alvarez, you know that he's always taken this fight seriously. He's always been proud to represent his country. Canelo Alvarez is a very passionate, dedicated, and proud fighter, and he's always shown that in the ring and outside the ring. So much respect to Canelo Alvarez. Mortal Fox says, in my opinion, nobody currently at 154, 160, or 168 have a significant advantage. I agree with that. That's why I think all those fights are winnable for Canelo, but he could also lose them because they're very difficult. but I don't think anyone at 154 can beat Canelo, period. There's so many good 55, 45, 50, 50-ish fights, but nobody's anything greater than 50 against Canelo right now. I agree with that. He's too focused, skilled, powerful, smart, to be at a disadvantage. I agree 100%. Canelo Alvarez being at a disadvantage if against a fighter, like let's say if one guy has a height and reach advantage, Canelo Alvarez has a power or chin advantage. Canelo Alvarez has an IQ advantage, an experience advantage. So for any advantage someone would have over Canelo, he would turn right back around, and when you list his attributes, he would still have some advantage over them. So we have to process this honestly and unbiasedly. At the moment, Canelo seems to be king. But once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.